Today, the agenda for what I will be serving straight into your ears is a review, or rather I should say a react, to Vaush's Fortress arc. Now, this is something that I've wanted to cover for a good bit now, you know, while I was talking about some of my plans for the channel, like moving forward with more community-oriented shout-outs and where I'm going to focus my time behind the scenes and things like that. Some people have likened it to a sort of Fortress arc, and I'm noticing this term float around and be connected to Vaush.
So I was doing emails last night, catching up because I always have a lot to do, and I got an email from Streamlabs, essentially thanking me for the charity work that I did with Ukraine, offering to send me a gift. And I thought, how nice, how could I not? You know, I've actually gotten emails from a number of professional orgs, some Ukraine-based and some just like general charity stuff, you know, thanking me for what I did. And I realized two things while looking at that. First, I never really got much credit for that, which again, I don't do it for the credit, but it's just weird because after the PCRF stream, like, you know, it felt like it defined the positivity in the community for a while.
I'm going to try to be fair, but just say some things that are on my mind and try not to be too mean. It's good that he maybe mentions it's not about the credit, because if we just open the stream and that's kind of the first thing that we mention, or at least this video that I'm watching, it's the very first thing that's mentioned. As a paper would be structured, and as a, you know, YouTube release might be structured, whatever you open with is going to be pretty important to understand what's going on, and that's going to be a bit of a thesis point or a bit of a tone setting thing. So it's difficult, you know, if you open up with saying that, but then immediately say that it's not about that. I think it's instantly divisive insofar as for the people who think that he is just, oh, he's straight up whining about, you know, the people not recognizing him for his charity work, then you already have what you need to believe in that. And you can disregard the second thing that he says as just covering his tracks. And then on the other hand, for the people who like Vaush or, you know, want to handle it charitably, well, he explicitly says that that's not what it's about, right? He simply points it out as a phenomena so that he can talk a little bit more about it, but that's not really the purpose for why he does those things. He's just talking about an aspect of, you know, a coverage or lack thereof of this, as opposed to his PCRF fundraising efforts.
Here's the problem, okay? The problem is that I am an exceptional person, and I have an exceptional community full of exceptional people. I think we're pretty great, really. And in spite of that, I feel like so much of this community and the content that I produce is reactive. I defend myself against other people, you know? It's been a while since I've taken charge. It feels like I'm always defending myself, you know, against an onslaught of... And the defenses that I put forward, I think, are valid, by the way. You know, I don't think that I'm wrong to do that, wrong in the stuff that I do or that I say, but I feel like in terms of, like, the community perspective, what does it mean to be a member of this community today? Well, it mostly means being hated by everyone online and getting banned in every left-leaning community. That's what it means to be a fan of me today.
So here's where we enter into territory where I feel like this is hyperbole, clearly. I think if I sat him down in a room with God, he would have to admit that this is hyperbolic, right? There's a lot of people I know that like Vaush that get along fine in lefty communities. There's a lot of creators I know that explicitly say, hey, if you like Vaush, if you're friends with Vaush, that's fine. They say the same thing about Hasan and other people. You could certainly say that they face discrimination in certain places. I actually think it's the defending of the streamer that really gets you discriminated against. There might be some minor omega lolling if you say that you're like a Hasan viewer and you're avid about it or something like that. But I think this is a bit hyperbolic.
We have to focus on affirmative community behavior, making things rather than responding to things. You know, we have to decide our arc. We can't let other things decide the arc that we're on. We have to make choices. We have to give people in the community a reason to be here other than being right. Because if you guys, I mean, if you guys at least in my opinion, be correct about stuff, then you can just listen to me and then like not be a part of the community. But the community, I think, can be much better.
I really hope that we're not being super serious here. This is almost starting to turn into, and again, I'm trying to stay really positive here. This is almost starting to turn into like when Emperor Palpatine is talking to the Senate after fighting the Jedi, and he's like, the incident with the Jedi has left me scarred. And then he starts to talk about how he's going to be changing things and shaking stuff up and consolidating power. I'm not to say that this is evil or something like that, but it's more so I'm getting bad vibes about what it is we're talking about when you mix in these kinds of messages about, well, I mean, you could technically just listen to me and copy me all day and then you'd be right. And this idea about correcting the behavior or having affirmative whatever about the people in your community. I'm worrying about this. It's getting increasingly worrying for me. But hey, maybe it'll turn around. I'm not sure.
I think we have a uniquely good community. Like, the people here are upstanding in a moral sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. You guys get on my nerves sometimes, but really, I've been in a lot of online communities, and I've seen a lot of them from the outside. And this is a good one. This is a very, very good one.
Here's one thing I will say, because I want to try to do more positive things when I hear them and I agree with them. I actually do think that when we look at all the online communities, at least in this space, I do think that his is one of the better ones. It has more people who are doing things in real life. It has more people who can be generally positive, right? Like, and I would even say this about DGG. You have a lot of people that watch and listen to Destiny that may not even be involved necessarily with this Discord or this or that, who actually do a lot. Actually, my host is somebody who has watched and listened to Steven since Justin TV. And he's a wonderful guy. He's totally involved in his community. He's politically active. He knows everything about the city that he lives in. Anytime he sees a political problem, he tries to put his will and energy into solving it. And my host in Switzerland is another wonderful example. Somebody who became involved in government, again, does a lot of volunteering in civil service efforts to help better his community around problems that he saw. I think that you actually do see a lot of positive people in these communities, and they're drawn to them because they're politically active in their own spaces. So yeah, I think it's worth keeping in mind that his community is like not necessarily one of the worst. Now, if you are a DGG, or if you are somebody from a space where the VGG horde has been called against you, you may vehemently disagree with me, and that's fine. There are going to be active vocal members who go and attack people, that go and insult people, that go into the DMs of people and say terrible things. That exists as well, right? But if we want to focus on the positive of his community, they're definitely there to see, and I think that's worth bearing in mind too.
We're purging the toxicity from within me. I'm going to address briefly every drama thing that I think we've been bogged down by interminably in the recent past. And as far as I'm concerned, it's settled. I'm sure it'll come up in the future, but I don't want to obsess over it, you know? Because if we were to obsess over how wrong everyone else is, every wrong done to me or what, I mean, we could do that forever. For years and years and years.
What's funny is, on the one hand, I think there's a problem with focusing on how right you think you are all of the time and really highlighting that. But on the other hand, I think it's totally fine to say that you are not going to be focusing so much on the other people who are wrong, or on the other people who are wronging you. So that's kind of where I seesaw on this. I feel like if your focus is mostly on not wasting your time on people who are trying to tear down your ideas, or are super anti-you, or who are trying to start drama with you, I think that that's totally fair and reasonable. And it's probably better. It would probably be better if most people, instead of focusing their attention on talking about how wrong the other person business, focused on doing the things that they thought were right about the world, and focusing on how do I turn these ideas that I think are right into political action and real things that impact change that I believe is the right change to impact. So that's kind of where I'm seesawing here. I don't have a problem with this messaging, but I had a problem with the idea that he knows for certain that he's right, and if everybody copies him, then they'll be right, and so on and so forth. You know, I'm young. I'm 25 years old. I'll be 26 in a couple of months coming up here. But I certainly feel all the time that I don't have the right prescriptions for things. I'm changing my mind on stuff all the time. Even little things like I used to always give the travel advice that if you buy socks, and this is a very minor thing, right? Because I don't want to get into serious stuff. If you buy socks, just buy a gazillion of the same pair of sock. That way, when you go to put them all together and you go to pack them and stuff like that, or if you lose one or whatever, it's not that big of a deal because they're all exactly the same sock. But I looked at my socks today and I'm like, oh, I have a gazillion different kinds. And I like that I have a gazillion different kinds. I say gazillion, but 3. That's 3 times as much. That's 300% what I should have. But I like having thin socks for when it's hotter. I like having low ankle socks, depending on the shoes that I wear. And I like having my big fluffy socks for when it's cold, but sometimes it's too hot, you know? So I think ideas are in flux. I think the idea that you are very, very adamant that you're right about things right now is a futile one. And I think that if you have people in your life that are telling you that they have 100% correct answers and that all you need to do is copy what their answers are, this is somebody I want you to be careful with in your life. This is an influencer that I want you to be careful about when you listen to them. That would be the advice that I would give you, whether it's me or anybody else. I think that you want to be careful about that. I think skepticism has turned into something that is a negative that people use to deny things in a very unproductive way. But I honestly think that skepticism around people like that is warranted and perhaps necessary, because that's a scary place to be if you start taking that seriously. So that's what I would say there.
So I think it's important, the fortress, we lay the first stone, okay? Clearly. Beginning, obviously, with the JKR situation.
So Vaush says all J.K. Rowling had to do was shut the fuck up, and she could have been almost uncritically beloved for like a century. So this comes off to me like I think they told some basketball player to shut the fuck up and play ball or something like that. I feel like this is similar to that. Sure, sometimes people who aren't political in nature that are famous for something else might say something you disagree with politically, but I don't think it's generally good to encourage them to shut the fuck up. Now, depending on what your position is around trans people and TERF stuff, you may again disagree with that. You may think that there is demonstrable harm that is done by sharing those opinions, but I think this is more broad. This isn't necessarily just about that, but it's probably meant to be a joke tweet or something like that, to be fair to Vaush. Then he follows it up with women be quieter and start apologizing challenge. So again, we started with like, okay, there was something in here that's kind of more broad than it needs to be, but maybe it's a bit of a joke tweet. Then we have a joke that I don't think is very funny. I don't think that Vaush is some like anti-woman person. I will say that right off the bat, right? And I don't think that this is necessarily evidence that Vaush is some anti-woman person. However, it is like an anti-woman tweet, right? So I think as long as he kind of just accepts that, sure, it was a joke that didn't land or whatever, that's totally fine. And I think I had seen him say at least one thing to that effect. Depending on how he recaps it here, we may have to take this very differently.
There are a lot of really good people in the online left who are, I think the well has been poisoned in their minds with regards to their perceptions of me, to the point where they are, when they see drama pertaining to me, they are there's an entirely different version of myself in their head that they're responding to. Like, whatever leads a person to equate my moral worth to J.K. Rowling's moral worth, I genuinely don't think that can come about from a person actually knowing what I care about or what I do or what I believe or what I say or anything to that effect. And to that end, we must recognize, no matter how wrong everyone else is, and God, are they wrong? No matter how wrong everyone else is, The only way out of this pit is to give them a better narrative. It is so tempting, and God, I want to, and I do defend myself, and I will defend myself against bad arguments, but a better narrative has to be given, you know? The well has to be unpoisoned. There's no way around that. You can't. Now, it may be frustrating, but it's just necessary, you know? We aren't taking the yellow? No, I was right about everything that I said.
Do we mean everything he said in the tweet? Again, these are the two tweets. All J.K. Rowling had to do was shut the fuck up, and she could. So the first tweet, I could see how maybe he defends it. I mean, technically, if J.K. Rowling was quiet, her art would speak for itself, and she would be a well-renowned author without much taint on her record. This second tweet is, I would hope that we're not defending this as a very serious point, that women should be quiet, that there should be some women be quieter and start apologizing to challenge. Maybe women apologizing would be a good thing, but I think anybody apologizing would be a good thing. Although I don't know about that. That's a tougher defense, I think.
In spite of me being correct and me being the wronged one here, I will still attempt to amend their misconceptions. I will. They strike me, but I reach forward and I gently brush the spider off their shoulder. You see, I help them even when I'm under attack. That is what I want to do, okay? And we will do it. With regards to Cat Black.
So at this point, I'm assuming we're giving nothing else on the tweets. I do think that if he meant for this to be the closing of this arc, it would have been very good to include something about this being a joke, about people were something about that, because that's I don't feel like my criticisms are addressed anywhere in there, and that's going to leave me feeling like maybe he didn't quite understand what people were upset about, because what we're all going to do is take what we think is the best reason to be upset about something, or the reason we were upset about something, and then assume that some large percentage of people probably feel similarly, and if we don't see that represented here, we're gonna not feel good about that closing up of the drama. So kind of disappointed in the response to that. I don't know a lot about this Cat Black stuff, so I'm gonna let it play through. And I know that this one is much more complicated. This isn't as simple as looking at a single tweet. I know enough to know that, so just gonna move past it.
Noah Samsen. It's really difficult for me to make out what Noah Samsen is or means or intends or plans to do, because it feels like Noah Samsen is incredibly, the negative term here would be spineless, but I think if we're to be more charitable and also more accurate, I think that Noah Samsen is just very susceptible to input from people around him. I don't know if that's just a product of him being new to the space, or of being younger, or if it's like a cowardice thing or whatever. I don't think that he's dumb. A lot of people in my community have said that he's dumb. I don't actually think that. I think that snark, when applied unwisely, can often come across as dumb, because it gives the impression of a sort of confident ignorance of a subject, you know. Snark is difficult to pull off when you're talking about political subjects, because if you frame it incorrectly or pose those arguments in a way that sort of looks over nuance that's really important to the thing you're being snarky about, then it can make you look really dumb. And again, the well is so poisoned with me. We'll see how things play out with him.
I don't want to comment too much on the Noah Samsen thing. This is something that I actually do know a bit more about, and I have watched this stuff and taken notes about it. I'll sum it up here, and I've talked about it before. I think one of the most interesting things with the first video Noah did that kind of sparked his drama with Vaush is by making a whole video about how one of the main differences between YouTubers and Twitch streamers is that YouTubers get to prepare their content, put a bunch of time into researching it, and generally have more thought out things that are presented in a very good way. And Twitch streamers have to talk off the cuff and on the fly, and that leads to some issues in wording, or in how accurate the things they're saying are, or the quality of the arguments, or yada yada yada. And then he goes on to make a video where he doesn't seem to go through the effort of researching researching everything that he's talking about, and then continues to make that mistake throughout that entire arc where he has problems with Vaush and other people. So I just find it a little bit ironic because Noah seems to be acutely aware of this problem and yet does not seem to work on rectifying it. Now, in terms of his willingness to change his opinions and stuff like that, I actually don't think that's a problem. I don't think it's a problem to be influenced by the people around you necessarily. Depends on the people around you, of course. And I don't think it's necessarily a problem to change your mind when you've been proven to be wrong. I'm somebody who, if you follow me, love it or hate it, if I see something that I said or a belief that I have that I think is incorrect because somebody has brought something to my attention that proves it to be so, I try to admit that as quickly as possible. Now, you may see some kicking and screaming on the way out, but I think in most of my conversations that I can think of, and most of the conversations I've had that you can probably think of, I end up conceding on stuff that I got wrong. I end up conceding on things that are proven in the conversation to be not good or incorrect, or, you know, maybe not the best solution to things. So I try to make it a point to do that. And you can call me spineless or whatever. I think it's good for all of us to keep our opinions in a basket in front of us and to kind of take them out and put them back in willy-nilly as we begin to find more information about the world. Okay, you're not really going to be producing stuff that is right all the time, 100% of the time. I actually think that most of the things that you believe about all the things in the world are probably not correct. They're probably not as accurate as they could be. And the odds that you stumble upon another person who's thought more deeply about it or is more educated about it, who can change your opinion, they're very, very high. And if somebody who's worked, you know, because of my previous job as an essay writer and a ghostwriter and researcher for people at a very high level, I have to say I run into people all the time who teach me about things that I thought I had correct that I clearly had very, very wrong. And that's after doing, you know, 20 to 40 hours of research into some of these papers and projects. And I'm still proven wrong because there's a whole world of information out there that I haven't read and I don't know. You know, I could read 20 different articles that all say that this one thing is right. But if those 20 articles are from 5 years ago, and in the last 2 years, there's been groundbreaking work that proves all of that wrong, as happens sometimes in, you know, the field of psychology or the field of education, then so be it. That happens, and you can be wrong, and it doesn't matter how many sources you have that say that you're right. So, you know, I think we have to be careful about that. And that's the same reason why I have a problem with him saying that he's for sure right, and it's good if people just copy him, and being so confident about that, I think, is problematic because it cuts you off from changing those opinions. And really, like I said, most of us and most of our opinions about most of the things that we hear about, whether that's to pull things out of the ether from nowadays, it's going to be like the Amber Heard trial, maybe this that you're watching right now, maybe some of the tweets that we've shown on stream, maybe it's Elon Musk buying Twitter. You don't know about what the board of Twitter was like before. I don't think that's very likely. You don't know a lot about the decision making going on behind the scenes. You don't know, a lot of us don't know about what Elon Musk's plans are. We have his stated goals, but I think the people who might be unhappy that he is getting Twitter are also people that probably don't trust that his stated goals are going to align with the goals that he actually pursues, right? And his implementation of some of his goals are imperfect. Like if we look at Tesla, yeah, he made a wonderful car, and it was an expensive, wonderful car, whose service is shoddy and craftsmanship is shoddy, right? So I think his implementation of some things is flawed. So, you know, what I'm saying is there's a lot of nuance behind all these things that we have kind of immediate opinions about. And I think we should be more open to people changing their opinions, and maybe punish people for giving snap judgments about things that they haven't done enough research on. I think that's also fair. But we should be careful about being upset that people change their mind. I don't think that's a good thing to demonize, and I'll continue saying that for as long as I believe it.
Demon Mama. I genuinely think that Demon Mama is like a good person, but holy shit, her grandstanding arc needs to, like, it's not even an arc, it's her entire, like, career.
Oh no.
Demon Mama has enjoyed success in being a loud and aggressive advocate for the things in which she believes, and I think there's something to admire there. But the fact remains that the longer you do this job, the longer course correction and the ability to engage in course correction is important. You understand? The longer you do something, the more L's one will accumulate. Everyone, including me. And when those things happen, when you accumulate L's, you need to have a process for being able to address them and respond to them. And when you grandstand so hard, when you posture so hard that not only do you deny these, but you also essentially like gaslight and abuse people who point them out. Like you act instantly, you act out like every like element of emotional abuse that you can, like in the short frame of a conversation, to try to manipulate them into not pointing out. Like, look, we all have bad processes. There are people who do this worse.
I feel like this is a big self-report. Yeah. As I'm hearing this, I am remembering, even within this same stream that we're watching, kind of elements of this. Emotional manipulation is something that many streamers, myself included, engage in to one extent or another. Now, streamers who might be notably using that more than other people, I feel like Vaush would fall under that list. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but what he's pointing out here with Demon Mama, I feel like to a lesser extent certainly happens on his own stream. My speculation is that a lot of Demon Mama's style comes from Vaush. No, like she was a viewer of Vaush. She is a fan of Vaush. She maybe even is a friend of Vaush. They, you know, she had a good deal of respect for him before this conversation. I don't know about afterwards. But it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the same things that you see Demon Mama implement on her stream, whether it's talking about the poisoning of the well around her, how that is reflected in people's arguments against her. People don't really know her arguments, and that's why they're saying these awful things about her arguments. Literally those three things we see in this video, and they're used to create the same separate bubble of reality that protects Demon Mama from criticism about the arguments that she puts forward. So, you know, if you add into that these kinds of like, oh, I'm kind of being emotionally battered by this and stuff like that, that the Demon Mama does specifically more than Vaush, I don't think they're too far off the mark there. I'm not going to equivocate these two things because I've not seen enough of Vaush's content to know that. But from what limited engagement we have, you know, with it on the channel, I would say that they're stylistically similar. Okay, so that's where I would go with that.
Hasan. Hasan, look, at the end of the day, the majority of the things that Hasan believes and stands for and argues for are things that I will agree with. The problem is that Hasan has absolutely no mechanism whatsoever for recognizing criticism. Absolutely none. He doesn't. He has no such mechanism. I don't think that he can I don't think he can recognize criticism as good faith. I don't think he can.
Another example of like, if you're anti-Vaush, there must be some irony in this statement when this video is about, I mean, he opens up and talks about some drama that I feel like he didn't really bring up the good criticisms about. He talks a lot about how the well is poisoned about him and these people aren't trying to understand him and all this sort of stuff. It seems like Vaush has had problems both in the past and recently with accepting criticism as well. Now, I won't say that he's to the point that Hasan is, of course, right? Again, I struggle to draw these similarities without you all, or at least some vocal minority of you, thinking I'm equivocating these two things. I'm really not trying to, but there's enough similarities. These things rhyme in my brain enough that I feel like they're worth pointing out. And some non-insignificant portion of the audience is hearing that rhyming scheme as well. And it's just, it's strange. And I don't know if anybody who is not super positive for Vaush is responding well to this kind of stuff.
Destiny. Okay. Destiny was recently banned from Twitch. Nobody knows why, because Twitch is a horrible platform that is incredibly opaque with their moderation. So I don't know. It's possible he was banned for briefly having Nick Fuentes on stream, a banned streamer, before getting off Twitch. It was like a 10-minute period. If that's the case, then I guess you could argue that's a fair ban because that's an explicit like violation of the rules. With regards to that ban, though, it seems like the people in his community are saying that it's actually because he said trans women shouldn't compete with cis women in sports or something like that. If that is the case, if that is the reason why he was banned, I would find that incredibly disappointing. While I disagree with Destiny's perspective on this, I do not think it's appropriate for Twitch to ban people over just stated positions on contentious issues like that. Like, that seems like an incredibly difficult line to maintain. Ultimately, the problem here is that Destiny has done so many fucking reprehensible things in the past month alone that I'm not even fully aware of, because he does them so often that keeping appraised of them would take more time. Like, I'm playing Elden Ring. I don't have time. He does so many awful things, at least has in the recent past, that for a lot of them, I would think his ban was justified. When he was doing his, like, rape apologia arc and, like, laughing and saying that, like, a woman who was raped was a retarded child, like, if he got banned from Twitch for that, I would have thought, yeah, no shit.
What he's saying here, I kind of want to give pushback on. I don't quite remember this as Destiny saying that she was a retarded child. I believe that the phraseology was more so, if we have to treat women in the way that you guys are asking me to treat this woman, you're asking me to treat women as if they're retarded children. You're asking me to treat them as if they don't have agency in these situations. They can't make intelligent decisions, that we take all kind of responsibility away from the woman because, what can you do? Women, they're just like that. Do the fucking, they can't think for themselves. They can't do the right thing. They can't, take agency in situations that are stressful or emotionally taxing or whatever. That was my understanding of his point. So I feel like this is he may have said this at one point, but I feel like the broader thrust of what he's talking about is that. Every time I hear him talk about it, that's what I have heard. This could have happened. He could have said this one way, but I would feel it would be very disingenuous to categorize or characterize his whole thing as what he just said, when all the things that I've seen have been worded in such a way that they're different than this. So I'm not liking this.
Honestly, I just think that Destiny's a transphobe. People in his community will argue against it because he's had pro-trans positions in the past and even does currently. But let me talk to you very briefly about that. Very, very briefly. How can you justify that? Just you watch, person who joined the site in the last 24 hours. All right, Artemy, you getting out of here.
I don't think that Destiny is transphobic. However, and I'm going to be as political as possible, I think Destiny has said some transphobic things in the past. I do think that some of the things he says about online trans people is, I think, like, and this is tough because I'm trying to be very careful with criticisms that I give of Steven. I'm trying to be really fair here. I don't think that Steven is a transphobe. However, Steven has said transphobic stuff. I think that, like, talking shit about the online trans community to the extent that he does, because of like I also, how do I handle this right? Yeah, like I'm just gonna say that I think that, online trans community is a wild place. It most certainly is, but I think we want to be really careful about the way we talk about those groups, right? Like I don't know. Maybe I have like a more conservative take on this. I'm willing to accept that, but I think it's a lot like when you're like, well, I don't have any problem with black people, but poor black people or hood black people, there I have some problems. Like I think you have to be very careful about statements like that. Same with this trans people thing, like online trans people, really all online trans people? Because I have a lot of online trans friends that are completely fine, right? Like, I think we want to be careful about these characterizations. I don't think they're necessary. And I think we want to be uber careful if it's about a group where there's a lot of hate behind them, right? People can say things that are homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic, racist, and not be those things. These things can happen. We need to accept that. Dave Chappelle can have some bits in his show that might be transphobic. Okay. Does it mean Dave Chappelle is a transphobe? No, not necessarily. Vaush can have a segment in his tweets, like the one that he had about J.K. Rowling, that is misogynistic. Does that mean he's a misogynist? No, I think that would be unfair to say. Does Steven say things that are transphobic from time to time? Yeah, he gets heated. Does that mean he's a transphobe? Certainly not. I don't think so. And I would just hope that we can all be reasonable and have, opinions that kind of cover that nuance better than I worry that is going to happen if people, look at that opinion from me. Well, where is the line then? Different for everybody, right? And I think the part of the problem we run into is for these marginalized groups, particularly the ones that feel attacked all the time or feel some sense of righteousness about going after people they perceive as attacking them, they put that line way the fuck back here. like past where I think the average person is starting from and past where a lot of allies are. And that hurts them. That hurts them. If you think that making one transphobic remark makes you transphobic, I don't think that's productive. And I don't think you should do that. If you think one homophobic remarks makes you a homophobe, that's not helping you. That's not helping anybody, I don't think. And I think that's the wrong place to put the line. But this line is going to be different from everybody. And people from that group, I think, are going to tend to put that line farther than people that are not in the group. However, in the case of social justice warriors, people who are not a part of these groups might put it farther back than the group would on average, right? Certainly, maybe some people would think that about like my opinions with the N-word, for example. I might put that line way farther back than a black person would, but that's just where my opinion is. So everybody's line is going to be different. It's going to be different on different topics. And if anybody tells you they have all the specific rules that cover how that line is drawn all the time, you show me that person, I'll show you somebody who hasn't thought it through all the way. Because I don't think we can create a rule set that always covers every single situation there. So I couldn't even give you a description of where that line is if I wanted to. I think it's way more of a feely thing than a thinky thing, if you catch my drift there.
When I talk about all these political issues, it's because I have a political bias towards a set of principles derived from subjective axioms that I want to achieve. They involve equality, they involve, human betterment, blah-de-blah. I've talked about it a million times before. I have what feels like an external set of processes and destinations that I can refer to whenever I want the world, whenever I want to refer to my own beliefs. Now, obviously, these are still subjectively held values, the axioms, so it's not like I have some objective truth marker that I can figure out, but I think it's still useful. The issue with Destiny is that, speaking frankly, if you distill it down to its truth, Destiny argues to feel smarter than other people. Every position that he holds is a product of his desire to satiate an emotional need to feel smarter than other people. That is absolutely the case, and he has essentially admitted this on stream before.
I like that we keep running into these criticisms of other people where I feel like it would be very easy to say the same thing and be not so charitable to Vaush as well. From the way that Vaush talks, to the passive-aggressive condescension with other people, to the statements he made at the very beginning about he knows that he's right and he's obviously right, and we're going to frame this as everybody else is wrong, and we're going to spend less time on the wrong people. Again, these criticisms I feel like there's very little consideration for how they turn around on him, but perhaps the people in his chat don't care. Perhaps people that like Vaush don't care about that. I don't know. This is turning into a bit of a Noah Samsen moment for me, where it appears that Vaush is aware of a lot of these things being wrong, but is not aware that they apply to the very statements that he's making or his character. And I don't know. It's sad. I really liked when Vaush, I don't know, maybe I'm one of these people that enjoyed when he kind of tested himself against other people. Because unlike Steven, who I feel like for the most part knocks it out of the park on most of his debates, Vaush actually lost. Vaush would lose. And Vaush would have battles where, maybe this is like wrestling. I don't know. You wouldn't want to watch a match where one person always whips the ass of the other person. I feel like at some point there's only so many people that constantly want to see that. I much more enjoy when both people are losing, when there's some exchange, when, oh man, he got this guy on this point. Oh, he's got a point there though, man. You got to give it to him. Maybe it's because of the fairness that I try and have with these conversations, but I enjoy them much more when there is some ebb and flow of who's right and who's wrong on different points. And Vaush certainly has that. He's wrong on some stuff and he's right on some stuff. He wins some parts of an argument, he loses some parts of an argument. He wins whole arguments and loses whole arguments. So I found that to be a fun thing about watching Vaush, is I never know from the beginning really what the odds are of him winning or losing something, regardless of the creator he's talking to. And that's fun to me. And on this note, I think that's also why, like, sometimes I don't enjoy vegan gains debates. If I'm really in the mood to watch somebody kick somebody's ass in something they're very, very good at, then I'll watch a vegan gains debate. But otherwise, I just don't see the guy lose. He's very good at the points that he's prepared for. And, you know, he's frankly, he's gonna win if you debate him on veganism. I think I've just never seen the guy lose in any meaningful way. So, you know, that's kind of my feeling there.
That's what happens when you are primarily interested in the pursuit of the truth, which, by the way, pursuit of the truth means pursuit of what you think is true, and you're primarily self-interested and you argue in favor of self-interest. All this adds together to mean that he doesn't argue for trans rights because he believes in trans rights. He argues for trans rights because those positions, when held, are the easiest ones to defend. They give him the greatest rhetorical and intellectual advantage against the people he argues against.
Even if we fit in with everything else he's saying, this isn't how I would word this. I don't think this is true. In Stephen's framework, I think it would be far more accurate to say that he has trans positions because it would do better for him to have not for like rhetorical reason or anything like that, but I think it helps him have this social contract with people better, right? Like he's got, you guys are DGGers, you know what I'm talking about. He has a gazillion other reasons for this. I feel like this rhetorical and whatever is more so a Vaush thing than it is a Stephen thing. I think Stephen traces it all back to transactional nature and stuff like that. And I think it has more to do with that. And I can't remember the exact wording off the top of my head, but Stephen has explained why he's pro-trans stuff in a very concise way. I can't bring it to mind the exact words. I don't want to mess it up, but like, it's not this. I think he's suspecting something different than what Stephen is saying, but I have no reason to disbelieve what Stephen is telling us. I, for one, really don't like it, and it is one of my hugest pet peeves to have somebody not believe what I'm saying when I'm being truthful to them. And that's not something I would want to do to Stephen, nor do I have any reason to do it to Stephen. So I think he's being truthful when he explains to us the reasons for why he's pro-trans stuff, and I have not heard this.
Having pro-trans positions is not the same thing as being pro-trans. Usually they are. For most people, that is the case. But it's possible to be Destiny, a person who argues in favor of most pro-trans positions, and then to spend a ton of time on Twitter quote tweeting trans accounts, accusing them of being groomers, accusing them of being pedophiles, accusing them of being sex pests, making fun of trans people's suicide attempts, going on a Twitter rant in which he defends continuing to make fun of people's suicide attempts.
Here's where we get into like plausible deniability territory. So like, to go to the other side of the aisle, and again, I'm not equating these things, there's a lot of conservatives that choose to pick fights with like particular minorities of people or particular demographics of people. And this happens on the left as well, picking particular people to argue against, whether that's because of their political ideology, their racial, makeup, or their their gender identity, these sorts of things. You could see a pattern of attacking these particular people, but a pattern alone does not mean that like they're against this particular kind of person. There's lots of people that Stephen goes after, and they're not all trans people. So I don't feel comfortable with this narrative. I mean, by the same token, we could pick a bunch of the people that he complained about in here, whether that's Dima Mama, whether that's Kat, I guess, because she's a trans advocate and trans woman. Who's another? Oh, ContraPoints. Like, I mean, if we wanted to be really, really uncharitable to Vaush, we could put forth the same argument and then name a bunch of trans people he's had arguments with and like awful things he said, and then just like do the same thing. Again, same yardstick, different though. I feel like Destiny's farther along than Vaush is from what I've seen so far, but again, we're on the same yardstick. These are similar things. I'm not sure if this is super duper fair.
It's possible to be pro-trans position but still transphobic. And anyone who thinks that's not possible, do you guys not personally know, or at least on the internet know, somebody who argues in favor of feminist positions but was still a misogynist? Is this really that unlikely? Of course it's not unlikely. This is actually a pretty common thing. There have been plenty of examples of people who argue, you know, in like a factual or logical sense in favor of progressive positions, but nonetheless have biases against those groups. My personal belief is not that Destiny hates trans people. It's that he and his community regard them with a kind of detached apathy. Essentially, Destiny thinks trans people are stupid ingrates who don't appreciate all the good he's done for trans people. And in that respect, because they've wronged him and his bias and priority is towards his well-being, they're functionally no different from the alt-righters that he used to argue against. They're just another group of, you know, essentially subhuman internet detractors that he can pull out all the stops against.
And here's the problem with using things like fucking subhuman when you're talking about groups of people who are already, you know, treated not well. And here's where, like, I'm not going to steer out of my lane to defend Steven. Stop doing that, dude. Stop calling groups of people subhuman. Stop categorizing all of the online left or all of online trans people or Twitter trans people. Like, don't do that shit. My advice is to not do that. And this is a result of not following that.
I think that Destiny's moral compass is fucked. I think the warning signs have been there for years, but they've gotten infinitely worse in the past few years. And as a product of all this, I just don't care about him being banned from Twitch, because he's done so many things that I would consider worthy of it, that parsing out the specifics of how this ban took place when the Twitch ban is opaque and I don't actually know how he got banned from Twitch is, I just don't care. Which brings me to his community. It's psychotic. I'm sorry, I can defer to objective truth on this one. Just go look at it. It's absolutely psychotic. You can go look at the replies to anyone he argues with on Twitter. They are full of conservatives, alt-righters, and Destiny fans who act like the former two, except they're better at concern trolling. They are absolutely insane. I genuinely believe that a good portion of that community is just mentally ill.
Actually, because $0, just because there are more empty homes than homeless people, we could just make laws so squatting is okay if there's nobody actually using the building. Okay, obviously that's a stupid as fuck thing to say. I certainly wouldn't be happy with that as a property owner. And then we read what he says. Sure, just tell all the homeless people to leave Seattle/LA/Miami/New York City and head to Montana and Wyoming, where all the empty dwellings are. Kyle Kalinske and other buzzword/catchphrase lefties have made us more economically illiterate. That certain things should be guaranteed in a civil society doesn't give us the right to spread misinfo. So that's Hans of Harkir, prominent right-wing streamer. So far, not looking good for Steven. Surely if you give each homeless $40K, some of them will put the money straight into their veins. Jesus Christ. Is this a right-wing person? Gabagoo. He's followed by counterpoints. Okay, confirmed righty. Passes law to make squatting illegal. Big cities ship homeless people Reagan style off to ghost towns in the middle of nowhere. They freeze to death squatting in some half-collapsed shithole because they don't have money to heat it. I love the thought of fixing homelessness by making them move into abandoned buildings and giving them nothing else beyond. I mean, like, they're not right-wing things, I suppose. I don't see like that they're right-wing people. But hey, you know what? Maybe he's seeing different tweets than me. It could very well be the case.
They are incredibly prone to brigading, and they are the biggest, let's say, selectively forgetful people in the universe. Like, for example, they're like seething over Keffels briefly and tepidly for 30 seconds or so, saying that Destiny might have raped somebody because of his like Rapestiny arc with the whole stealthing thing.
God gives me the hardest battles, the hardest tests of this new arc, I feel like, because I am his strongest soldier. As far as the Keffels thing, I will say this. It was, she said it quickly. It was quickly corrected by the chat. And then she kind of shrugs it off and goes, well, you know, maybe he didn't actually do this, but I mean, blah, 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 blah. And she keeps going on. It was a quick thing. And I think 30 seconds is a liberal estimate. I think it was actually much quicker than that. Yeah, it was a quick oopsie, but here's the thing. Kind of a big oopsie. Oh, is that the guy that raped somebody? Oh, he didn't rape somebody. He just did this. Oh, okay. Well, still not great. But as somebody who's been judged by their individual clips, I'm going to be somewhat sympathetic to that, you know, a little bit. But yeah, that's not a good thing to just say.
Meanwhile, Destiny has not only said, but maintained for months that a friend of Keffels is a pedophile. because she advocates for like trans kids being able to get on HRT. Like calling a trans woman a pedophile because
why can't he ever present my arguments honestly? What I said was that it's really fucking weird, sounds really pedophilic when you're on Twitter saying like, I've given over 500 minors access to illegal drugs to change their sex. That sounds really weird. I'm sorry, bro. Like, you've got to be fucking mentally imprisoned, okay, into some crazy fucking political hackery to not think that that doesn't sound really fucking weird. That is an incredibly fucking strange thing to brag about.
Yeah, Keffels retracted that point almost immediately. But like Destiny and his community will do anything or say anything about any people and justify it, and they'll gaslight you into thinking that you were the one who wronged him because they have a massive victim complex. It's fucking pathetic.
Again, with the gaslighting shit, I don't know. A big generalization about the community, even though it does fit with some of the people that I've seen and personally experienced, you know, I don't want to say much more there. You know, like, obviously it's not the whole community. Obviously, like, he's going to be kind of extra mean in a lot of these for history reasons.
Oh, I saw a person. Okay, so we watched the video is on my second channel, but we saw Destiny during the whole like rape apologia arc.
Is this how everybody outside of the DGG community views it? The rape apologia arc? Misa think that real bad, bro. Misa think that one real spicy, gotta tell you.
Again, he's literally just like laughing at a woman who was raped, calling her a retarded child, attacking her over nothing. Literally, she said nothing to him. He just decided to attack her.
Again, we're saying that I don't know if, oh my God, did he ever say that she is a retarded child? I don't feel like I ever saw him say that about her. I think you have to be very specific. Like, didn't he say like, we don't want to treat women as if they're retarded children, like they don't have agency in these situations? If anybody has a clip where he says that this lady specifically is that, I would be happy to look at it and to move on from that point. But he keeps repeating this, and I don't know. I haven't heard this. So, you know, I've heard it used in a very different way, and I think that very different way is far more charitable, and he has every reason not to be charitable to Steven. So I don't know, bro.
We saw all of this, and like, I saw somebody in my replies point this out, and then somebody, a DGGer, replied to that saying, did you look at the context of those statements? My brother in Christ, no context was missing from those statements. What the fuck do you mean? We saw... I swear to God, maybe this is my fault, or actually, I think this is Jordan Peterson's fault, because he does this worse than I do, okay? When the whole context thing is when a clip is out of context, so you don't know what's preceding or following it, where you don't know whether or not it's being said as a joke or like if there's anything around it. Those were just statements he made. Like, like I swear to God, they would look at like a New York Times article where they quote somebody famous saying something bad and go like, well, context? Like, well, my brother.
Aren't you the same person that gets mad about people clipping you out of context? Come on, bro. This is what we all go through. You don't even say like, oh, I've watched the whole thing. Even in context, it's not good. The context before and after is X and Y, and X and Y doesn't make Z look good. Like, there's so many other ways we could have worded this to demonstrate that like the context doesn't matter. Like, by demonstrating that we already understood the context and it didn't make it better and giving what the context is, but instead we're just kind of moving past it.
My subreddit, the purges will continue. 100%. DGGers, in terms of their willingness to raid and in terms of their moral standing, are, as far as I'm concerned, like on board with like alt-right raids, and I just don't care. You can look over at like Destiny's subreddit, and there are people over there, like they literally act like Kiwi farmers. That's not a joke. You're free to go and look at Destiny's subreddit. They just act like Kiwi farmers. You can compare. They don't use slurs the way Kiwi farmers do.
That's kind of a key part. They're like a fucking motorcycle gang, bro. They're fucking crazy. They're like a motorcycle gang without the motorcycles, you know? They wear leather. And they have beards. Like, what? I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Their community is like desperate for their editor to release like a 3-year-old clip of me talking with Destiny after the Poppy drama, which, I mean, they can if they want. They hold that over me. They try to hold things over me, which is very strange to me. As if I haven't demonstrated at this point that I'm essentially like unsinkable. What could, like, at this point? Yeah,
for how verbose and well read and everything that he is, I feel like unsinkable would not be the comparison that I would go for. Like, what a tragic adjective to use to describe oneself, or frankly anything. If there's anything that has had so many ironic instances of it not being the truth after it's declared, it would be the adjective unsinkable. I wouldn't say unsinkable. It's a bit funny.
I don't care whether you're one of the psychotic Destiny fans or not, at all. I don't care. You all play defense. You're psychotic. Destiny is psychotic. Do whatever you like. Next topic. Keffels. Keffels is good. Sure, I disagree with her on a lot of stuff, but I see her on Twitter and she ratios people and that makes me laugh. Oh, right. The Canadian Emergencies Act. I guess I don't really have much to say here that isn't covered by the next subject, which is my fans' capriciousness. That's you guys.
Okay. Why we don't use simple words, I fucking will never know.
I just have a request for you. Just be a little bit more trusting in the future, okay? I know that we have disagreements time and time again. I understand that, and that's fine. That's healthy, okay? But I'm not so concerned with the disagreements. I'm concerned with the methods through which the disagreements take place, like the attitudes that people take. And sometimes it feels like I have to swim like upstream to try to fight against the same misconceptions that I deal with outside of my community. The thing that really, really frustrated me more so than anything else was when people in my sub started to judge me based on Cat Black's framing of my private conversation with her, which I genuinely don't understand why. Like wait a bit, right? Like I just don't understand, right? Like why would you? Yeah, I don't know.
This is one of those places where I think Steven points this out sometimes, and I do agree. And it's funny, with a guy who's so verbose and so focused on explaining himself super duper well, I don't like the weird. It feels so weird to me. I think it feels more than weird. Maybe it feels like backstabbing. Maybe it feels like it personally hurts you that your community would just take up the word of this random person about a private event before even listening to your opinion. And I think that's human and that's real and that's totally okay, right? So, you know, I hope he explains it a little bit more, because this is a humanizing moment for Vaush, I think. And it might help you understand a bit better why he wants to purge these particular folks, I think.
Last 2 points. My own sub count. Obviously, it's been a bit rocky for a while. We got up, we've gone down. I do think that focusing on building the fortress arc, you know, I think the fortress arc is going to be very good for this community.
Correct me if I'm wrong, party people, because we've all been here. I haven't gotten any explanation on like what the fortress actually is. It feels like we're kind of vaguely building something, but there's never a moment where we put it all together or give the reveal. He talked about how his community is like interesting and important and whatever, but then he doesn't really talk about like in our focus about our own fortress arc, as other people have labeled it, not myself. We talked about like these Discord clubs are something I really want to push. I really want to focus on my Discord community. I really want to focus on having people here who are not only here for drama, but are here for my life and adventures and things that I enjoy posting about and whatever. Like, I talked about how I want to meet more people and hang out with cool hosts, like the one that I haven't done. You know, like I give a lot of specifics about what I mean by focusing on my community. And the only things I've gotten here is he wants to purge the people who are bad. I feel like a fortress feels like a building thing, but really what's happening here is he's like, we have reached a super majority in this village and we all believe in this crazy religion. So it's time that we killed all the infidels. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't feel like that's very fortressy as much as it is like jaily or culty. I hope we talk more about that in this last part, maybe some of the things he wants to do with them.
Lefty Reddit. As you guys all know, the entirety of leftist Reddit is controlled by a core team of moderators, most of whom are tankies who despise me and just auto-ban basically anyone who speaks positively of me. It is very unfortunate. I think probably the best solution is to just work on building from within, you know? Join my subreddit. I understand that it gets a bit of a bad rap at the moment because it's under constant brigades, but you joining would make it better.
Hold on. As someone who doesn't feel like I've been treated very good on the Vaush subreddit and who has a bad impression of the Vaush subreddit for those reasons, I don't think that's due to brigading. That's an interesting explanation for why they have a bad reputation, but everybody may have their own experiences with this. Just speaking from my point of view, I certainly don't think it's a DGG thing, because DGG liked me at the time where Vaush's subreddit hated me. So,
and then finally, my last point on this is my own reputation. The most difficult subject here of all. I think that I have a pretty unique reputation with the rest of online politics and the online left. I don't know if we've ever had a juxtaposition of a person who is so despised by so many people for so little. You know, obviously that is a subjective analysis, but given the fact that the last week of drama, which led to me being attacked, news headlines, losing like business connections, was over me saying women should shut up, I really, really genuinely think that I am in a unique position. It seems very difficult to pull out of that, to pull through that. But like I said, I think it's about building another narrative, you know? I don't think we can change people's minds by convincing them that they're wrong about their interpretations of me. I think we can get them to think better of me by giving them something good to focus on, which then might lead them to reconsider the negative perceptions they have of me.
yeah, so just keep doing charity streams and stuff, right? Like, I like when you do charity stream, people say nice, but then again, he did say, man, I did that last charity stream and nobody fucking talked about it. What's up with that shit? Not that I do it for people to talk about it, but I'm just saying, like, come on, bruh. I helped a lot of you, like, you know, well, I mean, regardless, I think that's good to keep doing. I think it's good to keep doing charity stuff. That's an example of something he could do that fits along these lines. Even if that last one maybe didn't get him all the popularity he was expecting or whatever, I think it's good to make that your kind of what you're known for. And in order for that to be the case, you're going to have to keep doing it.
There's a critical difference between those two, because one of them is offensive and the other is constructive. In one of them, you attack the narrative they already hold, and in the second, you build a new narrative. A fortress, if you will. And as people appreciate and admire your fortress, they reconsider. How could a person who has done this, who's done these things, how could they be this bad person I've heard of? I think this is an effective method.
How could a person who has defended trans people in so many arguments and taken so many pro-trans positions be transphobic because of these few remarks? I don't know. I don't know if he's really thought this one through from all the angles. I'm not sure if this is going to save him the way he thinks it's going to save him, but like, I don't know, worth a shot. I mean, if it means him doing more charity and stuff, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care if his logic is funky or whatever. I think doing more charity and doing more community stuff is great. Why not? Do more of it. That's good.
I will continue to defend myself against negative perceptions of me, of course, because I am, you know, I think that's my right, and I think it's good to do so, and I'm not spineless. But I also think it's important to understand that doing so isn't about changing other people's minds. It's about maintaining my character, the validity of my positions.
I don't really understand this. Anytime anybody tells me they're doing stuff not to sway people, I'm always a little bit... Really, though? I don't know.
It seems like a waste to go on about the J.K. Rowling drama, because I feel like my positions have been argued for, and I feel like I am borderline self-evidently correct at this point, given that the insane vitriol towards me went that far, and J.K. Rowling's now being endorsed by Putin, and it might have actually been because of the headlines that she made about me, because that's the last time J.K. Rowling made headlines. It was because of her beef with me, and right after that, Putin endorses her, and I can't help but wonder if he knows who I am. Maybe, possibly.
Okay, I and with that, my love, I leave you. Okay, we're gonna dig into the vault. Because I can't. I feel like I'm hurting your image by continuing to watch this, and I can't, dude. I can't. That's where I'm out. Should I slam a fat cloud of DMT and let the elves massage all the demons out of my prostate? Good prostate milking, huh?